So the panel discussion, I'm going to have Bill come on up and talk first about his solar guide.
I'm the Renewable Energy Program Manager for the Iowa Energy Center. We're part of Iowa State University with a mission to conduct and sponsor research in the fields of energy efficiency and renewable energy, as well as to be a source of information for folks on the neutral source of information. We're not trying to sell anything. And if I disagree, and my disagreement normally extends if the numbers are off by 10% or more, I'm going to write you a letter and tell you that I disagree and this is why, and ask you if you still want to proceed. Okay, so you get an engineering evaluation of your system as well as the program. So I do that on all projects. But if you have one of those big projects, and after I've done the review of all the applications that have come in, I will rank them. And even though the law stipulates that you can ask for a 20-year loan term, I will rank them based on loan term. The shorter the loan term, the higher that project will be ranked. The reason being is it will revolve the money in the program that much quicker, and I can finance more projects. So one of the, like I said, I've been around the Energy Center for 20 years now, so I've seen it all. And during the decade of 2000, I watched the wind industry grow and die in the state, especially the small wind industry. I'm not talking the Mid-American energies of the world where they've got utility scale wind turbines. I'm talking about the farmer and residential wind turbine industry was booming. The way we see solar today around here is the way that we saw wind energy 10 years ago, in particular up in the northwest part of the state, but even just south of here, between Waterloo and here, we saw a lot of wind turbines going up. Those wind turbines had a lot of problems because the consumer, the person buying those wind turbines, wasn't really an educated consumer. At the Energy Center, we see the same cycle happening now for wind. And understanding the problems that we saw with the wind industry, we wanted to get a little bit ahead of it with the solar industry. So we put together a booklet. We call it, it's part of our home series out on our website. We have a home series that currently consists of 4 books. They're all efficiency based. Heating and cooling systems, insulation, water, heating, as well as appliances. So I would highly recommend that you go out and look at those because you want to do efficiency first. Well, the final edits for the solar PV were submitted last night. So those final changes should be completed, maybe even today, and we will go ahead and post this up on our website as part of the home series. This is a 32-page booklet geared towards the residential and small commercial PV array system. It is not geared towards the utility scale. So a business, and I know businesses out there that have maybe up to 500 kilowatts of PV. This is not the audience that we were seeking for this. We're talking systems primarily 100 kilowatt and smaller. It was put together in a collaborative effort with multiple authors. You can see the list of those that contributed to it. I am the primary author of this book, so, but we do got the perspectives of the utility companies in there, as well as the consumer, represented by the Utilities Board and the Office of Consumer Advocate. And it's scheduled to go out this month. It's conceivable that it will be on our website as early as Friday this week, but certainly by next week. Part of writing this book was selfishness. I'm going to take those 45-minute to 60-minute phone calls and turn them into 5 to 10-minute phone calls by saying, here's your step-by-step. These are the things you want to think about. What it's not going to do, it is not an engineering design text. This is not a replacement for your dealer to actually come out and do a physical design. But what it will do is make you an educated consumer. It will make you so that you understand the terminology, the process that you have to go through, who to talk to, what some of the numbers that you should be looking for are, so that as you talk to multiple contractors, you can ask them some tough questions and perhaps actually understand whether or not their answers are reliable or credible answers or otherwise. Put together some of the table of contents. First, Andy, thank you for letting me share this with them. We're almost out of battery, looks like. See, I came over to the talk over in Waukegan and got a little carried away. We start off with what is PV solar and how does it work. This is just the fundamentals, but it's stuff that you need to know, because not every solar module, that's the big thing that we see in the back there, they're not all the same. There's different technologies in those black boxes. And you need to understand a little bit about what the black box that you're buying is. It might be a monocrystalline panel, it might be a polycrystalline panel, it may be a thin film panel. And all three panels are different technologies that have different applications to them. What we see back there is the monocrystalline panel, very black appearance. It's the most efficient panel as far as technology that you can buy out there. So if you have space constraints, because space is your #1 problem. You only have so much roof to put it on. You may only have so much land to install, though. Space is your #1 problem. If you have a limited amount of space, you're going to want to perhaps install the most efficient panel. Unfortunately, that panel is not too good for shade, so if you got a shading issue, you may not want to use it as compared to a polycrystalline that accepts shade a lot better. So we give you some of the building blocks so that you become a little bit more educated. Then we get into getting started, setting your goals. You know, you always have to ask the question, why in the world are you building it? You know, I used to ask that question with wind developers or people that wanted to install wind. Why are you building a wind turbine? Are you crazy? Why are you building PV? Is it because you want to offset your utility bill? Is it because you want to be a good steward of the environment? Whatever the reason, and I go through and list what different types of goals that I see happening out there, depending on the real reason why you're putting it in, might change or influence the size of system and the type of system you actually install. I would venture to guess for 95% of the people, they're putting it in because it affects their pocketbook. But certainly those that installed PV 10 years ago did not install it because of their pocketbook. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of merit to that. But you have to understand why you're doing it. Then we go through your preliminary steps. I think Andy did a good job. First thing, maximize your energy efficiency. We give you some examples in this book of what to look for and how to go about getting an energy audit performed at your location. Check with your local authorities. If you're in town somewhere, and I'm from Ames, so I don't know this part of the state that well, but does your town have an ordinance that either prevents you from installing a solar array on your roof or limits the conditions on which it can be installed? If there's, like some towns that have limits that make it very restrictive to put PV on your home, you know that may stop right there at that point. Don't go any further. So that's the first thing you do, check with your local authorities. Secondly, check with your utility company. Andy talked a lot about net metering and cost of power. You have to go talk to your utility, even though they are obligated to connect you to the grid by PERPA, federal law. How they treat you is not so specified. Alliant Energy and Mid-American Energy do have agreements with the Iowa Utility Board on how they will connect you and what kind of tariff they will put you on. But if you're with the REC or a muni, everyone is different. You need to talk to them and understand what that is. And we will give you in the book a list of questions and issues that you need to not only ask them, you need to understand the answers to them. I've got an example a little bit later that this becomes very apparent. The people that did go to their utility company and asked the right questions and got burned real bad after the system was up and running. Understand your electric bill and usage patterns, and you did a good job of talking about don't oversize your system. The number one good thing I like about PV is that it's modular. You can build the system to almost your exact needs. I always tell people, your dealer will tell you something different, but I always tell people, always make it a little bit smaller than what you really need, because you can easily add to it later. You can always add a panel or two later if you need it. But unlike a wind turbine, you put it up today and you're stuck with that decision. The solar modules are extremely, because of their modularity, you can fine tune the size of the system. So we go through some of that, and understanding how you use electricity and how much electricity you use becomes very important. We talk about how to prepare for a site assessment. When you have a dealer come out and do a site assessment, how to prepare for that. When actually conducting a site assessment, what are some of the things that you have to worry about? The orientation that you have, the exposure to the sun, the available area that you have to work with, the tilt angle. If it's going to be a rooftop system, well, the pitch of the roof pretty much dictates what your tilt angle is going to be. Is that the optimum that you want? We've got different roof and ground mounted considerations that you may not have thought about before. If you're putting in a ground mounted system, how much current should there be off of the ground? Well, around here we get a lot of snow. Up here you get even more snow than we get. You want that snow to be able to slide off and not build up at the base of the panels. We talk about a little bit designing the solar array and sizing the system. I've got two, what I call pretty simple examples in the book about how to size your system. The first one is a customer that has net metering with banking on a continuous basis. So anyone that's an Alliant Energy customer, you can go through this simple example and you will know before you ask the contractor to come out to your home what the size of the system ought to be. Let him then do his own assessment and see if his number is close to what you think it should be. And notice some of you folks are REC customers. How many of you REC customers have electric heat? A couple of you. How many with the electric heat do you get an incentive rate? Maybe 5.5 cents. Well, what you need to do is when you go to your utility company, you need to find out whether or not that incentive rate disappears. Because more than likely it will. And if you lose that 5.5 cents, then what happens? Here's a real live example. Customer, this was in Northwest Iowa. REC customer with electric heat. He paid 13 cents for his house electricity. He paid only 5.5 cents for his electric heat. And they were not allowed to do net metering on an annual basis. They had to settle up every month. And his excess energy that he produced, he got paid 5 cents for. About 60% of his total electricity during the year was from electric heat. Well, we use electric heat in the wintertime. Solar is only about half as good in the wintertime as it is in the summertime. So he couldn't even come close to meeting his electric heat needs as well as his home needs with his solar array. So he ended up having to purchase a lot of that electric heat, not at 5.5 cents anymore, but now at 13 cents. And then in the summertime, when he was overproducing, it wasn't worth 13 cents to him anymore. He was selling it back at 5 cents. The bottom line is that particular customer, because he didn't understand what was going to happen to him after the solar got installed, is his bills at the end of the year to the utility company were higher than before he invested $90,000 on a PV system. So he had a negative cash flow. You don't want to get into that situation. He got into that situation because he didn't ask the right questions, didn't understand the answers, and he came through the loan program, by the time I actually evaluated the system for him, he had already installed it. He was pretty upset that it didn't answer him sooner, but his eyes did get open. So you need to understand how these systems work. And our second example is an example exactly like a couple of you here might occur, and the size of your system is going to be a lot different. We talked about different software calculators out there. Andy mentioned the National Renewable Energy Lab software package. That personally is the package I like. That's the package I use. But there's others out there, and we talk about those. We go through different equipment selections. You've heard about string inverters and micro inverters. We will not endorse product nor contractors in this book, nor if you call me will I endorse one or the other. But there are things that you need to know about microinverters versus string inverters before you make decisions, because some contractors are pretty much married to one technology or another. We go through how to select a contractor. We have a whole list of questions that you need to ask them, and some simple basic things that they need to know as well. I always recommend that you get more than one contractor out on your site and compare not only their pricing, but also their performance of their system. It doesn't make sense. We go through a section on calculating your system return on investment, and finally constructing the PV array. The booklet is a combination of text and graphics, as well as a bunch of the did you knows. A lot of people have a hard time reading 32 pages of text, but by reading the did you knows, you can get a lot of information just by skimming those. We have a lot of pictures in them, what I call instructive pictures. And these are pictures that I actually took as I've gone around the state inspecting systems that we want to finance through the loan program. Here's pictures of very dirty, or what we call soil, PV panels. This one right here is one of my favorite. I was out on the site, I didn't have a bucket of water with me, so I just tried wiping the dirt off of the panel. That's a combination of 6 swipes of my finger. I still couldn't get down to the panel. Still going dirt. So this is a rural setting on a gravel road, not at a hog confinement facility. There's a hog confinement facility down the road a little bit. But there's a lot of these installed where you have livestock and on the gravel road, and you will end up with soiling. We get morning dew, and if you're on the gravel road, that dust settles on that dew and then sticks to it. In these particular cases, I'm guessing that there's a 10 to 20% loss of energy production simply because they were dirty. Why do I bring this up? Because when you're evaluating your system, no disrespect to the contractors, but most of the systems I see don't take into account soiling as an issue. If you live on a gravel road, you know your car gets dirty just by sitting there. So will your solar panels. Unless you're diligent about washing them off frequently, like you do your car, it will affect performance. When I talk to these farmers about why are they letting it get so dirty, the number one response, well, I didn't know it was a problem. That's a fair enough answer. That's the uneducated consumer. If you know that that's going to be a problem, take it into account during the design. List of questions to ask your contractors. So that's all I wanted to say on that. When this booklet comes out, it'll be posted on our website. Here's our website address, iowaenergycenter.org. Also out there, you can find information about the loan program and download applications for that loan program straight from our website. Okay. Thank you.